Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for attending on this Friday morning. As you can see, we're talking about search engine optimization. It's going to be about a 35-40 minute session with any questions that you might have that I'll do my best to answer at the end. So, all about helping your charity get found online. Do a quick introduction to myself. So my name's Matt. I run a company called CBOX. We work with third sector organizations and non-profits to deliver digital design and development. We also provide support and mentorship and digital training workshops like this. Some are in person and some are online, and some are found on YouTube as well. So check out the website, charitybox.io. There are some resources on there as well on the blog. And do give me a follow on Twitter if you'd like to keep in touch and keep updated with any more seminars that are going to happen in the future. So that's me. Quick word about our sponsor for this session as well. So we're being sponsored by Lightful. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. They're a social media monitoring tool that specializes in the third sector. It's a really good tool for kind of managing your social media. And thanks to their generous sponsoring of this event and some of the other ones that I run, they are offering a 50% off forever on any of their paid plans when you sign up through that link on there. I will share these slides afterwards so you have access to that. There are free plans, but there are paid plans as well. So if you enter the code CBOX, CBOX at checkout, you will get that 50% off lifetime on any paid plan. So thanks very much to Lightful for that, and I urge you to check them out. Let's get started on this then. So in this session, we're going to look at what SEO is, because it means different things to different people. We are going to look at Google's relevance to SEO. I'm also going to talk about the difference between on-page and off-page SEO, maybe something that you're familiar with, maybe not. And I'm going to talk about backlinks and keywords. We're going to look at how you can effectively measure your SEO so you know what's working and what isn't. And then we're going to finish on a Q&A. So if you've got any questions along the way, drop them into the chat channel and I will collate them for the end of the session. Is that okay? Make sure that you can see all this correctly. Okay, so let's start out with a definition of search engine optimization. So obviously SEO stands for search engine optimization. It's probably a term that you're very familiar with. It's all about helping your organization to be found online. And we can broadly split it into two categories. That'll be on page and off page. And I'll talk more about that as we go on. But SEO is obviously very important. You've probably received spam emails from SEO experts, people promising you, the moon on a stick kind of page one rankings for your SEO. So emails like this, spam emails, greetings of the day, first page ranking on Google, very competitive cost. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I get these kind of things all the time and it's a bit frustrating, but it kind of gives you an idea of how prolific in a way, prolific the SEO kind of landscape is. And it gives you an idea that there are a lot of service providers out there, if you can call it that. But why is it so important? Why is SEO so important and something that your organization should always be kind of considering? Well, it indicates a healthy marketing strategy. If you can get to page one on Google, then that means that you're doing something right. Being found online easily is an indicator of authority and trust. Once again, you're not going to make it to those sort of top rankings unless your website and your organization as a whole has spent some time building trust and becoming an authority in the space in which it operates. And lastly, if people come to you, it makes life a lot easier, right? So, I mean, you can go knocking on all the doors you want, but really, if people are coming through to you and they're finding your organization and they're deciding to lend their support to you, it makes things a lot easier than you having to do things all by yourself manually constantly. So having an SEO strategy enables you to be seen by more of the right people. It reduces how much you need to spend on paid advertising as well, which is important. And it enables your organization to gain more support and to ultimately improve its impact. So that's why SEO is important. So let's talk Google, a little company I'm sure you're all aware of. So obviously Google's sort of the number one player in this space, but there are plenty of other search engine providers out there. If you haven't looked at this one at the bottom here, by the way, DuckDuckGo, they're kind of like the antidote to Google. They sort of put privacy at the heart of everything that they do. And you've probably heard of Yahoo and MSN and Bing. So they're the kind of other players on the market. But I'm going to talk specifically about Google, because Google has an 87% market share in the UK. Right, that's basically a monopoly. So whenever you talk about search engine optimization or search engine anything, you're typically talking about Google, because that is the company that you obviously need to appease and the company that you need to do well on. 87%. So Google is synonymous with search, and Google's technology has driven what it means to catalog and search for information on the internet. Back in the 90s, they patented their own algorithm called PageRank, which they determined at the time was the kind of optimal way that content should be indexed on the web. And a formulation of PageRank is still used today. And I'll do my best to explain what that means as well very shortly. And obviously Google is also driving search in other areas now. It's sort of the vanguard of search, if you like. So looking at local search results and voice search. So those sort of smart speakers that everybody's getting in their homes these days, they're obviously powered by, or some of them are powered by Google. It's just a different interface for search. So earlier on, I talked about the difference between on-page and off-page SEO. And this is quite a good starting point when we're talking about this kind of stuff. So in short, on-page is exactly how it sounds. It's everything to do with your website. It's to do with the titles of your pages, the content on them pages, the code that the website is built upon, and the server infrastructure that's hosting it, the sort of contact information that you have on there as well. So it's all to do with the content and the performance of your website. Off-page SEO is the opposite. So it's everything outside of your website. So that's news articles and press coverage, press releases, people talking about your organization on their own blogs, and of course, sort of social media buzz. So people talking about you on social media networks as well. So they're the two kind of key differences. You've got on-page and you've got off-page. Let's have a look at some of the on-page aspects. So your page title is the most important on-page factor when it comes to your SEO, because it needs to accurately kind of reflect the content of that page. I'll give you an example here. So CharityBox currently, it's a bit of a humble brag, admittedly, but we currently rank on page number 1 for the term charity web design. And one of the reasons for that is the web design page on the CharityBox website has the term charity web design in it. It's obviously got some other keywords as well in there, website design for charities, etc. You can kind of see what we're doing there in terms of putting those different words in there to appeal to different search phrases. But really, when it comes to your on-page SEO, that page title and the content that follows it is really the most important thing. Okay? Contact information is something that often gets overlooked, but is actually really important when it comes to ranking on Google and other search engines. Even in this day and age, you're having a physical address is considered important. It's considered, it gives you a bit more authority. It just means that you're a bit more real. And an easy way to kind of appease the search engines with this is to register with Google's My Business, which is free, and it will help you to appear in those local search results. So if anybody's searching for the services that you provide in the area, you will appear in the little snippet box, which comes with a map. You've probably seen it when searching for things previously. But it's worth getting registered in My Business there, because like I said, it's free and it will help you to rank quite well. When you talk about your organization anywhere else on the web as well, whether it's a local business directory or yell.com or something like that, you'll always be asked to put in your physical address. So if you do that, it builds up a case, if you like, for suggesting that you do have authority as a real organization, rather than just sort of set up, registered at someone's house somewhere, if that makes sense. So contact information is important when it comes to on-page SEO as well. So the code that your website is built upon as well. This is quite important. And again, it's often overlooked. Really, the structure of the website and the way that it's been put together kind of determine how accessible and responsive that website is. So what I mean by that is, can people use it on mobile devices? Do the pages load quickly? Do they work for people with various different needs? Google appreciates these kinds of things because it makes them a better search provider. So it's important that your code behind your website is built well. And just one other factor for on-page, the things that you can control within your own website. Your website's got to be hosted on a secure server. If you're going for the Google charity ad grant, which I think equates to up to £10,000 a month in advertising, you have to be based on a secure hosting infrastructure for that. It's very simple to do, but it's worth doing. Again, Google doesn't want to be ranking web pages that don't adhere to basic security precautions. So speed and security are also important. I've kind of just covered this, but to ask why do we think this is? Well, the simple answer is that well-made and fast websites that are secure and work for everybody, they make Google a better search provider. Yes, they have 87% of the market at the moment, but we saw those other competitors in there. If they start providing better search results than Google, then Google will lose market share. So it's really in Google's interest to only show the best websites. So it's in your interest to develop the best websites, if that makes sense. So they're the kind of on-page SEO factors. I want to have a quick talk about off-page. So off-page relates to any marketing activities that happen outside the website. It relates directly to Google's PageRank algorithm that I discussed earlier, and I will explain very soon. And for the avoidance of doubt, it's far more important than on-page SEO. So I've just spent some time telling you how important on-page SEO is and some of the factors to bear in mind there. Obviously, they're the kind of things that are within your control and the kind of things that you should, the best practices that you should do your best to adhere to. But really, your own website is you telling other people how great you are. Off-page SEO refers to other people talking about you, and that's far more of a powerful ranking factor than anything else. So I just want to quickly explain to you what PageRank is. I don't know if anybody has seen this diagram before. I just took it straight from the Wikipedia page for PageRank. But effectively, what it talks about here is each of these bubbles is a website. And the smaller ones are less likely to rank well in Google, whereas the bigger ones are more likely to rank well. They're considered to be more authoritative, powerful websites. And with that in mind, we can see these sort of turquoise bubbles down here. They're all pointing to this slightly larger one. Okay. Now the points here, the arrows indicate links. So these smaller websites are all linking to this slightly larger website, and that website is slightly larger because of those smaller ones linking through to it. E, F, and D are all linking into B, as are these smaller ones at the bottom, and that's saying that this site here must be a website worth talking about. It must be a website that's worth linking to because it is an authority. And effectively, this means that Google will then look at this collection of websites and say, B here is the most important one, so we will show this higher up the ranking than these smaller ones down here that don't have as much authority. So you could think of the B here as sort of the BBC's website, and the smaller ones would maybe like a local restaurant or something like that, if that makes sense. Has anybody got any questions on this in particular before we move forward? Okay. So links determine popularity. Every link that points to your website is an endorsement. You can almost think of it in terms of like a vote for a politician. The more links that your website has, the bigger the endorsement. And the more links generally that it has, the better. But obviously quality is important as well. And I've just given you a small diagram here to kind of illustrate that. So website A is linking through to website B. And that link, in the industry, we refer to it as a backlink. So a link from one website to yours is called a backlink. And I want to give you some examples of what backlinks actually could refer to. So blog post mentions. For example, let's imagine a fundraiser of yours is training to do a 10K or something like that. They may set up their own blog to kind of post pictures and updates on their training schedule. And during those posts, they're going to link to your website. So that would be like a blog post mention. They would be referring to your website on their blog, and that link would be called a backlink over to your website. Press releases, we all know what they are. Generally, if you can get a backlink in there as well, and it will count towards your sort of off-page SEO value. News coverage, social media posts, partner, supplier, and customer mentions. So, for example, if you've got a corporate sponsor, big insurance firm or something like that, they're probably going to want to talk about you on their website under their CSR section. In there, they will obviously link through to your website. So that is an example of a backlink. Hopefully that all makes sense. If not, please drop a question into the chat and I can address them later. Okay, so that's broadly covered the backlinks and the on-page versus off-page stuff. I just want to talk to you about keywords. And keywords are very important and really worth considering when it comes to producing any kind of content that you put together for your website or for any social media. So keywords describe the core services that you offer. They're often location-based, and they can be what's called head or tail keywords. And we call them long tail keywords because that's actually the industry term for them. But I think to kind of marry up with this sort of weird mouse graphic we've got here, it helps to think of it in terms of an actual tail. So the less specific keywords have a higher competition, whereas the more specific keywords have less competition. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of this now. So where a head keyword may be something vague and non-specific, like cancer charity, a long tail version of that may be something like testicular cancer support charity in Leeds. Okay? And what that effectively means is that the people who are searching for testicular cancer support charity Leeds are actually looking for a service in a specific area, and they're looking for support with a particular type of cancer. If you try and rank for the term cancer charity, you're going to be up against the Macmillans, the cancer research, etc. It's going to be really hard for you to make any headway in the search rankings for those kinds of keywords. So I always recommend to people that they drill down into their service offerings, and then they create specific pieces of content, whether that's a blog post or a specific landing page, and they talk about the specific services in this way using long tail keywords. There's a few other examples on there. The Chinese restaurant one becomes vegetarian Cantonese restaurant, secondhand cars, buy secondhand cars in Manchester. So you can kind of see what we're getting at here in terms of vague, high competition keywords versus more specific, lower competition keywords. And they're important because they're easier to rank for. So as I just said a moment ago, if you're trying to take on the major players, the bigger charities, the bigger organizations, it's much better for you to focus on your service offering and drill down into those services and pull out those keywords and produce content around that than it is to try and rank for the high traffic keywords. Okay, and I prefer to do this for another reason as well, and that is that those keywords are more likely to convert. So if we go back to this example, like I said to you earlier, if I'm looking for just Chinese restaurant, that could throw up all kinds of results. But if I'm vegetarian and I come across your website, then I'm far more likely, if you're a vegetarian restaurant, to respond in some positive way there. So long tail keywords are more likely to convert users to take action in some way. So you might be thinking, that's great. How do I get these keyword ideas? Well, there's a free tool by a guy called Neil Patel, who's pretty big in the SEO world. The tool is called Uber Suggest. And what it enables you to do is put in a keyword, in this case, mental health services. And what it will do is suggest to you some different types of keywords, more specific, tailored ones. So mental health services for children in Manchester is an example there. And you can kind of see there's an estimated volume here, which guesses at how many searches per month in the UK this key phrase gets. So this tool is telling me that nearly 3,000 searches for this keyword per month happens. Whereas this one here for children only gets 720. But again, if you're a charity that specializes in mental health services for children, then you're going to want, getting 720 relevant visitors is far better than getting nearly 3,000 less relevant visitors to your website, if that makes sense. So you don't need to do this. This is one from the workshop that we do sort of in real life, not on the webinar. But if there's one exercise that you do take away from this, it might be worth writing down some of the keyword ideas that apply to your organization and try and drill down into those services, because that will give you a base then, a good starting point for the content that you can produce on your website in order to rank well for those kind of keywords that you're looking for. So I think I've covered a lot of this, but how to use those keywords. Basically, in any piece of content that you write, whether it's on your own website, whether it's in a paid advert on the web, or even in print literature, social media, you want to be kind of getting those keywords in there. And it's got to be natural, it's got to be written for people. You can't write it with sort of search engine robots in mind, but it's got to be, you've got to consider that content every time you write a piece of content. You've got to consider those keywords. So we've been through quite a lot so far. You've probably determined by now that there's quite a lot of effort required for SEO. It's an ongoing investment in terms of time and quite often money as well. So how do you know if it's actually worth it, right? Let's have a look. So it's not cheap in time or money, and it can actually take a while to see the fruits of your labor. And when you do, you're going to want to know how you actually determine the value of that investment. But before I go on, I just want to very quickly, talk about what's potentially an epiphany moment. SEO is difficult to measure because it's actually a company mindset more than a set of activities. And this refers to something I said a moment ago. Anytime you're talking about your organization, your staff, your services, anything that you do, you need to be thinking about it from a marketing perspective, right? So when you start thinking about things from a marketing perspective, your SEO, if you like, and your digital marketing across the spectrum actually improves. So although there are a set of activities you can do, write a blog post once a week, use social media, etc., it really is all about the mindset of the organization. So let's have a look at some key performance indicators. So I've talked about backlinks, and I've also talked about, or rather I'm going to talk about, domain authority, which are determined by backlinks. These are some of the things that you can measure. So if you start from today, say we're going to start working on our SEO today, it might be good to have a look at this website here, ahrefs.com/backlink checker, because that will give you an indication of where you are currently. Okay, so it will tell you, broadly speaking, how many backlinks your website currently has, and then it will give you an approximate domain rating based upon those backlinks and the quality of them. Now, this is the BBC's website, so obviously they've got quite a few backlinks and their domain rating is really, really high. Yours, it wouldn't surprise me if the backlinks are only around a few hundred and your domain rating is somewhere in around 20 or something like that. So these are the kind of things that you can look at every couple of months, every 3 months. You can run your website through this backlink checker to see how you're getting on. So if you go out there and you do lots of you approach people to create blog posts for you. You do press releases, etc., etc. You can see how these backlinks will grow and the domain rating that you get as a result of that. You can also keep an eye on your website traffic as well, because that's an indicator of performance. Obviously, if you're putting a lot of effort into your SEO, you're going to expect to see an increase in website traffic as well. You're also going to want to set some goals. So investing in your website is pointless, obviously, without goals, and setting goals is pointless unless you track them. It's important to point out, by the way, that goals are outcomes, such as inquiries or sales, donations, whatever. They're not KPIs. Website traffic would be considered a key performance indicator. It's not a goal in of itself. A lot of these, quote, SEO companies will say to you, we will get you 1,000 visitors a day to your website. And it's like, okay, great. And they would define that as a goal. But actually, if those 1,000 visitors aren't doing anything, if it's not turning into anything for you, whether it's some kind of action from those visitors, it's really quite pointless. So goals are outcomes, not KPIs. So an interesting model that's used in marketing to understand how things are going is the AIDA model, which stands for awareness, interest, desire, action. And it's basically a very standard marketing funnel, if you think about it. You think about somebody coming into the top of the funnel here who doesn't know anything about you. They will then obviously be aware of you. You then have, it's your job to create some interest and desire and actually provoke an action from that visitor at that point. So I'm going to just go through now each segment of this model and show you how you might track that. So how do you track awareness? How do you know that people are becoming more aware of you? Well, as I said previously, you can look at website visitors. That's a very clear metric to look at. And you can also look at things like social media engagement. So obviously, if there's more happening on your social media channels over time, then that kind of indicates that more people are becoming aware of your organization and aware of your services. So that's something worth keeping an eye on each month as well. If we want to track interest, so these are people that have come through to your website, but you don't know what they think about your website or your organization. So we can look at a few metrics, such as the number of web pages viewed per visit, the time people spend on your website, the percentage of people returning, and the average bounce rate. So a bounce rate, if you don't know, means somebody comes through to your website and they leave on the same page that they entered on without going elsewhere on the website. So that kind of indicates that, well, A, they either found exactly what they were looking for and left, or B, the more likely scenario is that your content didn't engage them very well. So there's work to do there if you have a high bounce rate. So looking at these metrics, in isolation, it can be a bit difficult, but if you look at them all together, it builds up a picture of how interested people are in your website, okay? If they're viewing lots of pages, if they're spending a bit of time there, and you have people coming back, then that shows that people are interested. If all of these metrics are showing quite negative for you, then that would imply that your content needs to work a little bit harder to appeal to those visitors. How do we track whether people actually want to take an action in some way? So social media messages, you might get questions. If people are reaching out to you in some way, then that indicates, to me at least, that there's possibly some desire to help you or support you in some way. Repeat views of appeal pages, if people keep coming through to those appeal pages or donation forms or whatever, and then actually aren't taking action, that indicates a desire, an interest, but it doesn't necessarily indicate an action at this point. So it's worth looking at these metrics as well to kind of work out how you can sort of seal the deal. People are interested, they have a desire to help, but they're not quite over the line yet. What can you do to bring them over that line? And finally, tracking action, the goals that you set out previously. Now, this is obviously very bespoke to your organization, but I would imagine for most charities, donations is one of the kind of key goals that you'll be looking for your website to perform. Advocacy, so social shares, things happening outside of the website as well. Job and volunteer applications, newsletter subscriptions, all these kinds of positive actions that people take once they come through to your website. It's worth tracking them as well over time to see how your marketing investment is going. So you might be thinking, what has this got to do with SEO? I mean, I haven't actually mentioned SEO in a few minutes, talking about that sales funnel. Well, the point is that SEO keeps the sales funnel topped up, and this refers back to one of the points I made at the start of this presentation. If you've got people coming to you, then that's a really good thing, and you're not having to do a lot of outbound marketing. You're not having to go out and find people. And SEO, if you're ranking quite well for a number of keywords, and you're bringing in that search engine traffic, it keeps this sales funnel topped up. So people keep coming into your website from the search engines. Obviously, it's the website's job then to bring them through this sales funnel, but ultimately, SEO helps to keep that funnel topped up. Okay, so that's the end of the sort of formal part of the presentation. There's a couple of questions just been dropped in here that I'm going to tackle now. So the first one, talking about keywords. Is there any limit to the number of keywords you should add to a page? A limit to the number of keywords you should add to a page. So I talked about peppering your content with different keywords to make sure that you rank well for those keywords, right? In the old days, people used to put those keywords all over their page, and they would put them in a tiny little font, or they would do it at the same color as the background. And the idea was to kind of trick search engines into thinking that that's what that page was about. And that, well, you know, search engines are more sophisticated than that now. So you don't need to do that. There is no hard limit on the number of keywords that you should put on your page, but it's worth just kind of peppering those keywords into the content that you write. How important are other listings like Yell, etc.? Okay, so I think you would look at that for your off-page SEO. Sometimes it's referred to as link building, and it's all about getting coverage outside of your website and getting those links and mentions back to your own website. It is very important. It's probably paramount, actually. I wouldn't spend a lot of time or money on small business directories, but other listings like Yell, I can't think of any websites off the top of my head now, but if you Google business directories, you'll find some of the top ones, and it's worth spending £50 a year or something like that to get a listing in there, because you can put a link to your website in there. You can put your address on there as well. Remember, I talked about contact details and how important they were. So the other directories and listings are very important. Another question, how important are other mentions, others mentioning you on social media via tagging? So this is kind of a bigger question, really, and it's difficult to answer. But I would say that as social media has grown in usage over the past decade, particularly over the past 5 years, Google and the other search engines are looking at your social media accounts, and they're looking at those networks in general to see how often your brand name or your website gets mentioned on those social media platforms. Okay, so you can imagine if you have a piece of content that just happens to go viral and it gets thousands of retweets in an hour, then obviously the search engines are sort of indexing that content. They're looking at what's happening on social media, and they're going to sort of say, well, all these people are talking about this website or this piece of content, so it must be valuable, and therefore we're going to give it some preference in the search engine rankings, even if it's only for a short period of time. So how important is it for others mentioning you on social media? It's very important. I would put it secondary to actually doing manual press releases and going out there and actually getting people talking about you. But it's definitely worth doing. So if you can ask people for retweets and shares on social media, etc., then that's definitely worth doing. Okay, just one more question. How long does it take for search rankings to improve? Okay, so let's say that you spend some time and money investing in your SEO. You want to see some kind of return on that. How long that's going to take is honestly, how long is a piece of string? It's not a question that anybody really likes to be asked in this industry, but really, I mean, you're looking at probably a few months. It depends. If you've got a big, powerful website already, it can be quicker. If you've got a new website, you'll have to establish some authority. You're on the bottom rung of the ladder, so to speak. So it will take a lot longer. So be patient. That's really my that's really my response to that one. So not even 40 minutes in. It's good going. Has anybody got any other questions at this point? Okay. Well, thanks again, everybody, for attending. I'm going to send a follow-up email after this. It will include the slides to this presentation. I'll also reiterate that Lightful offer, which I think is worth looking at. And obviously, there's a recording of this webinar as well that I'm probably going to share on social media. If not, I will put it into the email to you guys after this. Oh, one more question has just come in, so I'll just very quickly answer that, and then we can sign off. So, is there anywhere you can look at historical data for your website rankings? Not really, not unless you have Google Analytics or something like that installed on your website. There are websites out there that will try and guess your traffic over time, so you can put in any website and it will try and guess, but it's really quite inaccurate. I wouldn't bother looking at that. But I would definitely say if you don't have Google Analytics on your website at the moment, go and install the code, and then obviously you will build up data over time. In terms of your actual website rankings, again, it's what's in the past in a way is in the past, and it's hard to kind of sort of bring that up with any accuracy. So really, it is a case of you tracking your own rankings over time, and then doing a diff, if you like, and seeing what it looked like a month ago versus what it looks like now. So I hope they answered that question as well as I can. But as far as I'm aware, you can't find historical ranking. Great. Okay. Well, thanks very much, guys. Like I said, I'll send out the email after this. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and I hope to see you in another webinar in the future. Bye-bye.